Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the Tilt Shift Blur node. And this is another DaVinci Resolve node available within Fusion, and it is Studio version only, unfortunately. So in Fusion, here we are. We've got some drone footage of my horses out in the recently rained in pasture. So we want to make this look kind of like the miniature look. And that's what the Tilt Shift Blur is for. It's usually used for the miniaturization illusion that you get in different stuff. And we're going to go over different footage here to do 3 different examples. So I'm going to use this for the basic. And then by the time we get up here, we're going to be doing the more in-depth stuff using generated Z-depth maps. So you can use the Tilt Shift Blur for things like your depth blur that you would get in a camera. So let's go ahead and add a shift space tilt shift blur, and we're going to add it. And let's go ahead and look at our little blur node. So on the display itself, we get this little gizmo to move our blur around so we can place it where we want it, and we can change the angle however we want. So in its basic form, this is what it's for. You basically get that miniaturized look right there. So if I play, you can see our footage. Looks like our horses are little tiny horses standing out there. And again, you get this effect more depending on what kind of footage you put in. And we'll go to this other one so you can see that a little better. But for this, I'm going to use this footage to show you all the basic settings for this node. So we have 2 types of blur. We have lens blur. And if we have it set on lens blur, we get the option to change our lens iris. If we select fast blur, we only get one option. So it's going to give us square iris. So we can't change this lens iris anymore when we have it on fast blur. So even if I go up here and change this and leave that open, you can see our blurring is squared, and no matter what we change this to, it's going to be square blurring. So we're going to leave this on lens blur. Underneath, we have blur strength, so we can change the strength of the overall blur. Under iris, we can change the shape of our iris, and we have triangle, square, pentagon, and if you look at some of these blurrings, you can see that iris changing. And we have hexagon, heptagon, octagon, and circle. And under here, we can change our blade curvature. So if we have it on something that has a curved blade, we can change that blade curvature. We can change the rotation of that blade. We can change the anamorphism of that blade, so you can see those stretching out. And we can change it so the highlights are more or less affected by our blur. Under our depth field, this is where we're selecting our map that's dictating our depth of field. And if I select this depth map preview, you can see the depth map that's being used to apply that blur. So in here, we can change the focus sweep, which will change the location of the blur. We can change the in focus range, which is how wide. We can change the near blur and the far blur independently, as well as change our center X, center Y, and the angle of our blur. So if I uncheck this and let's go back to our little horses here, and let's change that in focus range. Let's keep our horses in focus. We can change that near blur up. We can change the far blur. And there we go. We've got some blur effects on our little horses, making them look like miniature horses standing in the field. Under our advanced controls down here, this is for following, sizing, and tracking for nodes down the lane, and this is primarily has effect when we use it in the color grading tab. It doesn't affect too much within our Fusion tabs, but what it's meant to do is if we change the sizing and tracking down here, it's going to keep our centered and everything where we want it to be. So if we change the size of the footage down the line, bigger or smaller, it's not going to move this to some weird random space because we changed the size. So leaving that checked is your best bet. So let's move on to our next example. But before we start, how about you jump down there and hit that subscribe button? Let's up our subscriber levels so we can get this channel really moving. Anyway, for our second one, and this is something you see a lot, like in the beginning of movies, they'll have the little tilt shift thing to make it look like it's kind of miniature. And this is the node you would use to do that. So I'm going to hit shift space, add the tilt shift blur. And if we look at it, you can see we can now change the location of our blur. But one thing when we use this in Fusion, our tracking is a little different. So if we look at our center X and center Y, a typical tracker, if we wanted to track this so this stayed centered right here, isn't going to work the way you think it does, because you can just simply connect to the tracker position for each one. It's going to do it in some weird 3D space. So tracking and then assigning this to a tracker doesn't work in Fusion as well as it does in the grading tab, because this is what this node is actually meant to be used in DaVinci Resolve in the edit and or the grading tab. And it does work with the trackers within there. But within Fusion, it takes a lot to get these trackers to connect correctly, and it's quite a bit of coding and a bunch of work. It can work, but it's honestly easier just to keyframe this. So if we want to attach this up here to lock in our little location, we can move this, and we're going to use this little center line right here. And let's go ahead and add a keyframe. We'll go to the end. And there's a little glitch within Fusion. If I try to grab this, I can no longer pull this once I add a keyframe and move it. So you have to move it by moving your actual sliders or your numbers over here. So let's zoom in and get this where it belongs. If you hold the control button, it'll go down in smaller increments. Let's go to the middle. Let's go to the middle over here. And if you're doing this for production stuff, obviously you would want to do it all the way through, but that is good for now. We have got our little thing tracked, so it's kind of following our footage there. And that's good. So now if we look, we've got that little miniaturized look going in our city scene here. And we can dial this in a little better. So if we want to change our in focus range, we can change that. We can change our near up, so we're including a little more of those vehicles down there. And another thing they often do is change the coloring up to make it look a little more modelly or fake. So we can up our saturation, up our contrast, and let's add a little gain to it. So there we go. Now we've got that miniature look zooming in the center over here. And finally, we've got our last little example here. And this image does have some depth of field going on it already. But if we needed to change it or add it, if we didn't have any, we could add some using the tilt shift blur node. So to be able to do that, first thing we need is a depth map node, and we're going to add that. So let's look at our depth map. So we just need to finagle this depth map so our little B is in focus. So we can isolate a certain depth if we want. We can find it. There we go. We can change our tolerance up or down. And we can adjust our limits here. So now we've got a somewhat good depth map. You may want to spend a little more time with that, but now we can add a tilt shift blur. And if I input this tilt shift blur and we look at it, up here under this map source, we have three options. We have custom, which is just going to use this. So if I look at our depth map, we have from alpha in. If we had an alpha coming in, it would use that alpha. And since we don't, it's all going to be white. Or we can use from second input. And that's what this green input is for. So if I input our depth map into our green input and we look at our depth map preview, it's our depth map. Now, mind you, this is going to do some weird things to your depth map because you notice we've got these chunky square things over here. But if we go to our post-processing, we may be able to fix some of that stuff. So now on our tilt shift blur, we can change our focus. So we can just change our focus sweep to where our little B is in focus. We can change our focus range to increase it or decrease it. We can change our near and our far blur, so we get a better depth. And that's how you would use a tilt shift blur to kind of get that depth of field on your camera. So that is the tilt shift blur node. I will see you in the next node breakdown.